So it still continues to be a problem. You would think that after decades in Illinois, we would have solved the problem, but we haven't. Um, we have continuing issues with it. It's a below ground pest. You can't eradicate it from fields. The best thing that you can do is manage it. And the main mechanisms for management are ones that farmers are using. So rotation, soybean cyst nematode really favors soybean. It will not grow on corn. So rotating to corn is a control strategy. However, the nematode is able to survive as an egg for multiple years. So while you'll get some reduction in your soybean cyst nematode populations by going to corn, it will not eliminate the problem. So the other control strategy that most farmers are probably using is resistance. And so when we look at commercial soybean varieties, 99.9% of them that are out there have resistance. Now the issue that we have with that is that most of that resistance is based on a single genetic source, this source named PI 88788, which just rolls off the tongue. And so we've been using that same source of resistance also for decades. And the nematode has started to adapt to it. And so we're seeing that farmers that are planting resistance are seeing higher levels of the nematode than they would expect with a resistant source. And so, we're telling farmers, you really need to sample and get tests done on your fields to know what levels of SCN you have.
And so if they've got high levels, you recommend them to use Peking in their resistance package.
Correct. So probably in Illinois, 90% of the commercial varieties have PI 88788. There's probably 8% that have Peking. Now, the challenge for those listeners that may be in the southern part of the state is that there really aren't great varieties out there that carry Peking. So most of the Peking is restricted towards central northern Illinois maturity groups. So it does make it challenging for those people down in southern Illinois.
So is there anything else out there that farmers could say, I can't wait for this to happen, I'm going to get some?
Yeah, so in terms of other control strategies, there are seed coat that various companies have distributed that have different modes of action. So some of these are more traditional nematicides. They're things that directly affect the nematode. Some are microbial products that are serving as sort of a barrier coat. But I would say in all cases, no matter what, you really want to know what sort of levels of the nematode that you have. So one of the projects that I'm involved with is funded by the Illinois Soybean Association that provides free testing for farmers. And so they can email me at freescntesting@illinois.edu and find out about that program. It's also on the web if you just Google free SCN testing. And yeah, it's a program that you submit your samples and we'll test them for free. We'll tell you the number of eggs in that field, and we can provide general recommendations based off of that number.
Now, when people send those in and they get a number of eggs that are high level, very concerning, what is your message to them?
Well, it would depend on how high the level is. So, if we see a level, so we usually quantify the eggs in terms of number of eggs per 100 cubic centimeters of soil. So 100 cubic centimeters is roughly half a cup of soil. When we start seeing numbers that are above 10,000 eggs per 100 cubic centimeters, and let's say that that number is from a field that was just in corn, we're starting to say, well, you might want to think about maybe doing another year of corn, and not planting soybeans that subsequent year, because you're at a level where, even if everything else agronomically looks great, we know you're going to get yield loss. Starting off with that high level. If you're above that level, just coming out of soybeans, and you're going to have a year of corn coming up, well, then maybe do another test the following year, see how far that number has dropped. So it kind of depends exactly on, okay, when the test was taken. You can do sampling anytime, and we can detect the numbers, but our interpretation of that result will kind of depend on sort of, okay, when it was taken, were you coming out of soybeans? Are you going into soybeans? That sort of thing.
What is keeping soybean seed companies from taking out that PI88788 gene and just putting Peking in?
Yeah, it sounds so easy, right?
It should be.
just swap it out and put a new one in. There has been challenges, and it's, I think the reason the market is dominated by PI88788 was that it was found to be easier to breed with without getting what we call a yield drag. Whereas with Peking, when breeders have worked with it, oftentimes it's been associated with a yield drag where even though you have this different form of resistance, you get lower yield than you would with Peking. And so obviously, the bottom line is the bottom line. Farmers are interested in yield. And so, I think it's caused companies and breeders historically to sort of back away, but that is changing. And so I think the recognition that the SCN populations have changed has sort of put a bee in the bonnet of breeders as well as companies to get these new sources of resistance out there.
What is preventing research, whoever it might be, from coming up with something that just doesn't kill it in the ground?
That just doesn't kill it, so
Yeah, so it doesn't hatch, or if it does hatch, it dies, as a lot of other insect controls could.
yeah. So I think we have. I think the thing that is preventing that is that it's hard to work with, and we don't have a huge amount of knowledge on the biology. I mean, we would want to know targets. With something like BT for insects, there's years, decades of research that have gone into mechanisms of how that particular toxin works. There are groups that are actually looking at modified BT proteins that will affect soybean cyst nematode, and so that might be something down the line that we'll start to see. So again, I think all of this is motivated by the fact that PI88788 has had a really good run, but it may be getting closer to the end of its lifetime. I do want to emphasize, though, that it still is better than planting a susceptible. So if a farmer was thinking, oh, should I plant the PI88788 resistance versus a true susceptible, the PI88788 is going to be much better than a susceptible. It still provides control. It's just that control has lost some of its efficacy.